We've been talking about the budget almost exclusively this last couple of weeks. And inevitably, as the number has grown, the number of dollars that were in the hole, starting in October, December, it was 3.2 billion, then it was 5.8 billion, then it was 8.3 billion, and now it's roughly 9. The deeper we dig in this hole, we realize that we can't just cut the budget and cut 9 billion out of a $34 billion budget. Now remember that some of that money is off limits anyway. 58% of it we can't cut very much at all. We'd have to cut 9 billion out of the 14 billion that is not protected either by our state constitution or by federal match or federal mandate. We can't do that. That's an over 50% cut. Think about it. In our health care alone, we'd be literally killing people. We would make college tuition skyrocket. We would make college out of the availability of a middle-class family. We're going to have to supplement that with taxes in some way. And rather than beat around the bush about it, we need to talk about the form that those taxes are going to take. Not whether, but how. My own feeling is, and I've said this for what, 12 years I've been down here, is that the fairest way to tax people is to tax the people who have the most discretionary income, the people who can afford it. It's not most of the people in the 37th district, that's some. An income tax, I personally feel, has to be part of an overall restructuring of our taxes. And I have suggested, as have others, I'm not alone in this, Ron Sims broke his pick on this issue in his gubernatorial primary. We need to talk about an income tax that would affect families that have $100,000 or more per individual, $200,000 or more per married couple or domestic partnership. And I say this with the understanding that $100,000 in these days isn't extremely wealthy. It's wealthy by relative terms, but it's not flagrantly wealthy, you know, with houses in, you know, multiple places. We're talking about people who work for a living. But it's those people that earn $100,000 or more, for the most part, who understand precisely that they have an obligation to give back. They're the ones that benefited from good schools. They're the ones who benefit in their businesses from our transportation system, from educated employees coming out of our schools, all of which the taxpayers pay for. And they're the ones, I think, who understand an obligation that we all have, not just them, to give back. And oddly enough, the opposition to an income tax hasn't come from them. It's come from people whose incomes typically are lower, who would not pay for it, but who fear either irrationally that they would pay for it now, or that in a hoped-for future they themselves might be earning $100,000 and would pay it then. But let's think about it. If they do gain in income, as we hope everybody does, and are eventually earning $100,000 or more, $200,000 per couple, shouldn't they then pay a tax on that part of their income that's above that line? I think they should. How we do an income tax is going to really determine the public response. We've got to be careful about it. I know, you know, the common wisdom, the conventional wisdom would have you, oh no, it's the third rail, we can't talk about it. But increasingly, individual colleagues of mine are talking about it down here. I feel like I've gotten some converts. I feel like now that we're coming out of the closet, as it were, that we are able to talk about it rationally. I propose that $100,000 be the limit, $200,000 per married couple or domestic partnership. I would like to see it graduated in percentage of taxation. I don't want to see a Steve Forbes-style flat tax. I'd settle for that if we had to, but we shouldn't talk about what we'll settle for. We should talk about what we want and need in the state. I'd like to be able to tell you how many billions of dollars the revenue stream would be, but we don't know that. And the reason we don't is you need to know not just how many people earn over $100,000, you'd have to know what they earn, and we don't. We would find out if we passed the income tax, which is kind of cart before the horse. We'd like to find out before we pass the income tax, because we have to rely on these numbers when we balance our budget. But my educated guess is that at $100,000 per person, we're talking about something between $750 and $1 billion a year. Sufficient to help us balance our budget. It won't do the job by itself. There will probably have to be other taxes as well. But for the first time, at least since we repealed the motor vehicle excise tax, the only other progressive tax we've ever had, wealthy people above 100,000 are not taxed as steeply as people in the bottom 1/5 of the demographic. The people who earn the least 1/5 are the people who pay most of their income in taxes. That's unfair. It's bizarre. It doesn't work in terms of just raising revenue from poor people. But mostly it doesn't work because it's totally unfair. Why should a well-to-do person who's benefited from all the public amenities the taxes pay for go scot-free, as they have since 1999? Why should they not be paying their fair share? Forbes magazine calls us, and get this, a tax haven for the well-to-do. That's Forbes magazine. That's a very dubious distinction, to be called a tax haven for the well-to-do. Shouldn't we be a place known for tax fairness? I think we should, and I think ultimately this idea is going to gain strength. If it hasn't got a majority this year, it will in some future year, and I want to be around to see it. Thank you.